We're just going to run through some sort of theory and practice around supporter journeys. And really, but one thing I just want to stress really quickly is like, yes, we're talking about supporter journeys, but all these kind of theories and ideas can also be fed into your ongoing email program. So journeys are great for creating a sort of groundswell of action behind something or for a particular objective. But it's about building on that and getting people kind of moving into your main program beyond that point. So just to kick off, I'm Andrew Taylor-Dawson. I'm a digital fundraising and mobilisation consultant. Broadly speaking, my work sort of covers strategy, content and supporter journeys, and a bit of training. I work with a range of organisations in the kind of recent period. These are some of the organisations I've had the privilege of working with. I'm also an associate consultant with a couple of consultancies pictured at the bottom there, although I'm speaking in an independent capacity today. So over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? My name's Laura and I'm co-director at Freedom for Animals. My role covers fundraising, communication, supporter journeys, amongst a lot of other things. Just a bit about Freedom for Animals to start with. I've got the same problem the person had on the first day with short legs. So yeah, we're a long-established small charity working to end the captivity and exploitation of animals used for entertainment, including zoos, aquariums, live animal displays and the pet trade. I could talk a lot more about our charity, but I'm going to pass back to Andrew now, who's going to talk about the theory of supporter journeys, and I'm going to come back with a case study at the end.
Thank you, Laura. So there's a whole range of things that we can use journeys for, but if we sort of split our supporter bases into sort of leads, our current donors, and our lapsed supporters, we're using acquisition to bring people both into our pool of leads and into our sort of current donor pool. And journeys can really help you to re-engage people, to help you to get them to the next point and really create a groundswell of action that can then be used to convert people over time. So it's really worth thinking of all the activities and actions that you can present to people as being of a piece. So not being separated purely into fundraising or into campaigning, that they are all things that people can do for you to further your cause. So why are journeys important? Well, it costs a lot to recruit new supporters. So this is from the average cost per lead on Meta from the M&R Rally digital benchmarks. Now, I think this does trend very high. Obviously, I think there are a number of factors that cause that, but a lot of people will be targeting closer to £1, £1.50, but even if you're getting that sort of cost per lead or less, you're still spending a lot bringing people onto your list. So it's worth making the most of everyone that comes in. So in terms of the life cycle of a lead, you obviously want to strike while the iron is hot, have a really amazing welcome journey and get that kind of action early on. But after that point, you don't want to be forgetting about people further on. So I have seen over time spikes of activity sort of 6 months, 9 months, even 12 months after people have come onto an email list. Well, I've said 18 months, there's actually quite a lot of evidence. So I've seen working with organisations, but there are others in the sector who similarly have found that really 18 months is the point after which when someone takes an action for you first, they're basically inactive. Obviously, you want to be getting them to be active a lot earlier than that. But if you've got people up to that 12 months and beyond period, maybe that's a time to try and re-engage before they fall into full inactivity. So a really sort of key point, your online supporters don't just want to be passive donors. They want to be part of a movement. They want to do things for you and help push your cause forward. So really to create amazing experiences online, we need to be having a conversation, not just broadcasting to people, but creating a two-way interaction and finding actions and engagements that allow you to do that. At the core of everything that you do should be shared values. In a really kind of sort of terrifying political environment that we live in and where things online can be really overwhelming, expressing a value can be a really powerful thing to do. So giving a sort of shared alignment. And if you're doing those things, then people are going to be more predisposed to you and more likely to donate. So it's about bringing together all these elements. So I like to think of content in a number of kind of boxes, not boxes, really buckets, I suppose. Values-based actions. So all of this isn't exhaustive. There are obviously other kind of actions that you could come up with or create. But values-based actions are just sort of your simple hand raises, which can be as straightforward as basically a value that you're just getting someone to say, yes, I agree with that. Your sort of classic petitions and emails to targets, but then mixing those up with things like engagement actions. Surveys are fantastic. I'm sure loads of you do surveys quite regularly, but really simple ones which allow and help facilitate that sort of two-way conversation. People love telling you what they think, whether you want to hear it or not. Quizzes are obviously speak to something that people like to do online. They give a sort of fun, lighter form of engagement. But also something that I've done in the past and I think is really great is doing sort of data gathering exercises where you're getting people to fill in a simple form and give you genuine sort of information, thoughts, feedback, quotes that you can then use in your comms and actually create a sort of a nice sort of feedback loop. But beyond that, value exchange is another really kind of a really powerful way of engaging with people. So giving people a product that speaks to who you are, what you believe, and is genuinely of use to the individual. And I've got some examples of that in a moment. So thinking about content, one of the things that organizations often say to me when I say you need a big kind of pool of evergreen content to be fueling your journeys and also to be able to kind of come off the shelf to be ongoing sort of engagement, so you have this really sort of regular communication with people. One of the things people often say to me is we struggle to create that amount of content, which I totally get, but you might be sitting on content that you haven't even considered could be an action. So this is an excerpt of the value statement from Freedom for Animals. Within that statement, which is obviously signed off, it's agreed, it's in use, you have things that can be really simple hand raiser actions. So a really fundamental value for your organization can be turned into an action in a really straightforward way. So we believe animals should live free from exploitation, harm, and captivity. There's one hand raiser. And then further down, another key element of what the organization does is undercover investigations. So let's galvanize support behind those things. So when we were creating actions, we created simple hand raisers based on those two things, plus another one that speaks to a really core value of the organizations. I believe that animals are not for our entertainment. So we created those basically from existing content. And beyond that, also sort of came up with two really simple pledges, a pledge not to attend zoos and a pledge not to attend aquariums. So actually, very quickly, after talking about the sort of core values of the organization, we had 5 engagements. Each of those were built out with obviously page copy, a daisy-chained thank you page, donation ask, and a cover email. And then sort of beyond that, if you then throw in a quiz and a survey, then you have a really decent pool of content that you can be building journeys from or using for your existing email program. So similarly with some other clients of mine, I've worked with an organization called We Belong who support young migrants. And we did some stuff which was still about their really fundamental values, but was slightly more kind of zoomed in than that. A core part of what they do is around supporting young migrants in the education system. So we created a really straightforward, values-based hand raiser that spoke to that. But also thinking again about content that you might already have that could be repurposed. This was, I used to be in-house at the human rights organisation Liberty. So we had this really flat sort of loyally page with information about what to take, what not to take to a protest, and crucially, what to do if the police talk to you and you get arrested. So it was a really dry page, but the information was great. So we repurposed it into Liberty's practical protest guide. It looks a bit wonky because I've had to cut it in half to put it on the slide. It's actually longer than that. So it's a scrolly document that you can download, a PDF to put on your phone that people would sort of use or have as a resource with them. It spoke to who the organisation is. It was genuinely useful. And then people could download that, be served a donation ask on the thank you page after they filled in the form. And again, that was a way of sort of really reusing a piece of, and presenting in a different way, a piece of existing content. So I can't take credit for this one. This is one I found in the wild, but I think is a great example of a value exchange product. So I was visiting Cumbria, and this was advertised into my feed. Niche, yes, but they're working on the assumption that people sort of visiting the area or people in the area are going to be quite predisposed or interested in nature. So you've got this fantastic guide to fungi. It's a really good value exchange product, and crucially, it speaks to who the organisation is. It makes sense to be coming from them. So further thinking about value exchange, this is another thing that we did at Liberty. This is a physical value exchange product, which obviously then has print and fulfillment costs. But this is a guide to your human rights. It really breaks it down. It was a really lovely sort of printed little book, and this was an absolute banker for us. It's something people could order online, get sent in the post, and then get taken on a journey. So moving on from there, it's really key to think about how people read your emails. So you can come up with a great journey, have some amazing actions, but you need to think about the way the email is going to be consumed. And I've come up with sort of 4 key archetypes for how people read emails. So one of them, the reader, this is the person who sits down with their cup of coffee, pores over every word in your email. Now, this is I can guarantee this is the absolute minority of people on your email list. Yet a vast amount of charity emails are written for someone to read in that way. They have a long, flowery introduction. They're possibly far too long. They don't get to the point quick enough. So we have to think about other ways that people read emails. There's cut to the chase. That's the person who's going to skip to the highlighted text. They're going to skip to the button, the ask, the skimmer. So you have to have decent, broken down sentences, not iambic pentameter, which someone can sort of skip their way through, make sense of if you're reading a few words and then skipping onwards. And then skip to the end. Again, very self-explanatory. So they might read the opening line, be like, right, what's going on? Go right to the end. So structure your emails for them to be read by people who aren't reading every word. So summarize the call to action towards the top, have a really clear button, a couple or 3 paragraphs down. You want a bit of further information after the ask for the person that wants that or wants to go a little bit deeper. A second button, not absolutely essential, but can be really useful. But also, if it is a slightly longer email, it breaks it up a bit. And then a summary and sign off. I've got this far through, and now I'm going to, after saying all that, give you a definition of a supporter journey. I'm just putting this in here because people use the term in quite different ways, and sometimes sort of use the word supporter journey to almost mean an email program or comms plan, whereas actually, for this purpose, it's a time-limited series of linked communications with a clear goal. And we can do a lot of things with journeys. Obviously, one of the most common being a welcome journey, warming people up, creating further points of action and converting. A new donor welcome, you can send a series to your new regular givers to reduce attrition, to build loyalty, to create further onward action. Campaign-specific journeys, reactivation, and other things as well. So just to come on to structure, obviously the most simple way you can structure a journey is to keep it linear. So is to literally be one email and on to the next. I tend to send them sort of every 2 to 3 days. So to keep that momentum, if people have seen one of the previous emails, mix up your content. So have a variety of action types, of engagement products, and then building up to a conversion ask at the end. Most of the journeys I create for clients are conditional, so have a conditional element. This is a very simple conditional journey. So literally, this is just your first action. We're splitting in terms of whether the person has taken the action or not. So people will get a share ask if they do take it, or a reminder. The idea being that you're simply trying to drive as much to get as much action early on in the journey as possible, because then people are more likely to do another action or donate or do another thing for you. You can make your journeys a lot more complicated than this, but if you don't have loads of data going through and you have multiple different channels, you won't learn a huge amount, because it will be hard to draw solid conclusions if you've got people going down lots of different tracks of a journey. It also can just be harder to manage. So start simple and build from there would be my advice. So just to give one example of a very specific journey I developed. So I developed this for Runnymede Trust. They came to me saying, we've got lots of cash donors that we have a very low gift aid take up for. So we built out a journey with the core objective being getting further gift aid sign up. So it looks more complicated, but is actually relatively straightforward. So if the person fills in the form straight off and says, sorry, I can't do gift aid, they will get a thank you, an acknowledgement, and the journey would end for them there. If they say, if they give a declaration, they get a thank you, and then a few days later, a soft sort of case study with a little cash ask in it. And then if people don't respond to the first email, which is all about the benefits of the gift aid scheme, they then get a case study. So we then switch to it being more about the work, saying if you give us a gift aid declaration, it will support the work further. And then they will go back into that sort of 2.1 if they complete it, or onward to another problem. So still fairly straightforward, but that's a slightly more complex journey around a really specific objective. So creating great experiences with journeys, I think there's some key ingredients to consider. Thanking, acknowledgement of past support, always have your values at the centre, so give really simple ways to align. Feedback mechanisms and surveys, presenting information in new and simple to engage with ways. Wrap it up always in a really consistent tone of voice, so everything that you send is sort of reinforcing what people have heard before. And also throughout, regularly reinforce the need for giving on your thank you pages, soft prompts, and then obviously standalone asks later in the journey. So that's probably enough from me for now. There you go.
Is it that one?
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. So I'm going to talk through how that played out for Freedom for Animals with 2 acquisition campaigns and the changes that we made between them. So at Freedom for Animals, we have a very dedicated supporter base, and people often think that we're much larger than we are because of the amount of campaign work that we can deliver. But to keep that work going, we needed to grow, and we needed to bring in more people and build warmer relationships with them. So we ran 2 similar acquisition campaigns through Care 2. Both were designed to bring in warm leads through petitions and a general sign-up form. The aim was not to just add names to the database, but we wanted to have supporters that would take action with us. The 2 campaigns gave us a useful comparison. The acquisition approach was similar, but what we changed was the journey people received afterwards. So the first journey, once the contacts came in, we sent a 3-part welcome series. The first email introduced Freedom for Animals, the second encouraged supporters to take 2 key actions, and the third featured a video and a fundraising ask. It worked, but it was very manual, and it showed us that our follow-up process needed to be stronger. The first campaign gave us some real confidence. People were taking action and some were beginning to give, but conversion was slower than we wanted. The interest was there, but the journey was not doing enough work yet. So the question was, what was stopping more people from taking the next step? We needed to look closely at the journey, where people were dropping off, whether the asks were clear enough, and whether the process was creating too much friction. With Andrew's support, we turned that question into a clearer plan. We reviewed the emails, the asks, points where supporters had to take action, and that helped us to focus on 3 things we could improve: clarity, friction, and follow-up. From there, we focused on 4 practical changes. We made the emails clearer, improved the sequencing, and moved more of the process into automation, simplified the donation forms. We did not rebuild everything from scratch. We focused on changes most likely to remove the friction and help supporters take the next step. So for the second campaign, we moved to a 6-part journey over 3 weeks. It started with a campaign action, then moved into a lighter engagement through a survey, pledge, quiz, before ending on a give and ask. The journey had more touch points, but the key difference was not just the length, it was clearer. People were given more ways to engage before the give and ask. So here's an example of how we changed the emails. The one on the left, you can't really tell there, but it was very long with only 1 button. The one on the right was the newer one, much clearer, better layout. And then we changed the donation forms, so it wasn't one continuous form with extra questions that we didn't need to ask. It was much clearer. That helped to remove the friction with the giving. So the action results became clearer over time. Over 6 months, campaign actions increased by 48%, and over 12 months, they increased by 85%. Because the actions forms stayed broadly the same, this gave us the confidence that the clearer journey and the clearer asks were helping more people take action. And the giving increased over time too. One-off giving was up 86% over 6 months and 35% over 12 months, and the average gift doubled. Regular giving saw the biggest uplift, increasing by 302% over 6 months and 55% over 12 months, and the average gift tripled. So supporter journeys were not new to us. We knew they mattered. The challenge was making them happen with limited staff time, limited budget, and tools that did not always make things easy. We could not change everything at once, so we focused on making changes most likely to remove friction and help supporters take the next step. For us, the lesson was that small changes can add up when they are all working towards the same goal. So what's next? This is the exciting part. Cliffhanger. We are implementing engaging networks right now, and our donation forms are live. Our action forms should go live this weekend. You might want to have a look at our website now and see how our email to target forms look. It's quite interesting. The change will be quite dramatic. And then we're going to start looking at our website and more supporter journeys and making the whole process easier for our wider audience. Oh, forgot to press this thing, didn't I? Last one. So our key takeaways, the biggest lesson for us is that you do not need to fix everything at once. We had to improve what we could, where we could, to make the biggest difference. We still have a lot more to do, but we are building stronger journeys for the people who want to stand with animals. There we go. Do you want to say anything else?
Questions,
Unless that is at the end.
Thank you, Andrew and Laura. Lots of great information on supporter journeys, and we have a few questions. One of them is about the M&R benchmark report and talking about how emails sent and signed off from just the organization did better than using an individual at the organization's name in the send. And the question is, what are your thoughts on this? And, are you trying it and seeing anything?
So just so I've got this Right. So whether it's better to send an email just from the organisation or from a named sender.
And the M&R benchmark report this year said that it's better to, or that organizations are seeing a higher result from the organization. Can you step closer to the mic?
I think it's something that's worth testing. I haven't done a huge amount around that. I think that runs counter to what I would expect, but is, like I say, it's something that's worth testing, worth looking at. It depends. I think if your email is very personal and you've put a lot of personality and it's sort of from an individual speaking to an individual, then it makes sense for it to be signed off by a named person. But if it's in more a kind of general organizational tone, I could see that you could just have it coming from X organization. But I do think sometimes there's potentially a place for both, in that there are times, sorry if this sounds like a bit of a fudge of an answer, but I think there are times actually where hearing from a person and getting that really kind of personal connection can be useful in terms of breaking down the perception of an organization just being like a corporate entity. So it being more a person hearing from a person that represents an organization, if that makes sense.
No, I think it does.
Yeah, sure.
No, thanks for that. I mean, I think it's, yeah, just from being at one of the recent benchmark report events, there's lots of conversation on why that result might be. And I think what you shared, sometimes they were saying for certain segments, coming from a named individual actually might perform better than the organization as a whole. So one person asked, did you make the 4 changes in one go, or did you make them sequentially? And then also there was just such a huge uptick in the number of actions taken on that change. And can you just remind us what you actually changed to cause that result?
Digging into the memory now. So, yeah. Can I just go?
Yeah.
It's been taken off our presentation now.
Okay.
That's fine.
So it's about the actions first.
So did you make the 4?
We made the 4 changes at the same time because it was changing the email, the supporter journey from one journey to another journey. So yes, we made those changes at the same time. The increase in actions. That was the question, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we saw quite a big difference in the action take-up, which was very surprising because we hadn't changed the action forms. We changed a little bit of the daisy chain, which I think had a massive impact. But it wasn't clean and it wasn't tidy, but it was much better than it was before. So I think just making those small changes, even if they're not perfect, has a massive difference.
Yeah.
I think in a way it was probably in part down to the structure of the emails and the way the calls to action were structured as well, and the potentially slightly more concise action copy. So everything had just been kind of dialed in a little bit more. Yeah.
I think we worked on more than we realised now looking back, because we changed the action form length as well.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, yeah. They just pulled it up.
Great, thank you.
So it was the one back from that, I think, right?
That's the action forms.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, this.
So the button moved up a little bit, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, we moved the button because there's no image on the one on the right. We moved the button so that it was much more engaging, much more up the email.
And then just one last question. Coming from an organization that has a tendency to over-explain in our supporter emails, do you have any tips on how to better cater email copy to different types of readers, like the skimmers that cut to the chase?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've worked for a few organisations, for and with a few organisations who are quite wordy, and sometimes that's okay if you structure in the right way, because lots of us are working on quite complex, multifaceted issues. I also think making emails shorter in and of themselves, unless your emails are ridiculously long, you can still have a reasonably long email that is well structured. And if all the content is justified, as long as you've got a really good summary at the top, you've got really clear call to action and buttons. And I would say also don't overdo emboldening. That sounds like a really really particular piece of advice, but you want to draw the eye to certain places. So you want to draw the eye to the main ask. Too much emboldening and you're sending people's focus all over the place. But if you're a really kind of an organisation with lots of information to fit in, I suppose it's being really clear about what the objective of the email is and what the call to action is, getting that as tight as possible, making it as clear what you want from the supporter as possible, and then just looking at breaking up your copy quite a bit. So if your sentences are too long and flowing, split them. Make sure you have that great call to action and a really good summary as well. So it doesn't matter if you have a reasonable amount of extra explanatory text if I think those basic things are taken care of.
Thank you. And thanks. Let's have a round of applause for Laura and Andrew.